The word escrow in real estate. Now, it's not a very common word in real estate in Georgia, except for someone who has come from outside of Georgia and moved to Georgia, because Georgia is one of only 6 states that actually use closing attorneys. So in our area, we just call it a closing, and an attorney has to do it. Nobody else can do it. It's against the law for someone else to do it in Georgia. Same thing in South Carolina. I don't remember where all the other states are. But my question for you is, what are all the different meanings of escrow in your state?
A lot. So we use escrow for a multitude of things. So we have a escrow agent. We have an escrow officer. We have put escrow money. We have an escrow account. Mm-hmm. We have in escrow,
which it would be the equivalent in Georgia of under contract.
Okay.
Would be the same as in escrow.
Yeah, and some people will call it under contract. Some will call it pending. Some call it ratified.
Right.
But we're in escrow because we're waiting to close escrow.
Right.
And close of escrow is the closing where everything funds.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and you have the mortgage account escrow.
That's the escrow account.
Okay.
So that would hold the taxes and the insurance. And we have escrow money, which secures the contract between the buyer and the seller.
Which could be earnest money as well?
Earnest money.
Okay. That's a big list of escrows.
That is a big list of escrows. I feel like I'm missing
So if I said it's going into escrow, that could mean it's money going into my escrow account. That could mean it's something that I'm sending to the escrow agent or the escrow officer, and I don't know the difference in those two. I mean, right? There's a lot of confusion.
It would be, if you're going into escrow, your contract could be going in escrow. So not just the money going in escrow, which the money does. The money will go into an escrow account, but the contract is also going in escrow. We're in escrow, which is the process that is waiting to fund, meaning close.
So we're waiting to close it.
We're waiting to close it.
In the state of Georgia, when something goes under contract, the contract is given to the closing attorney. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the difference between the way something closes in Georgia and the way something closes in Texas, is when you open escrow in Texas, I'm just going to say the parties and the documents and everything are just part of that process. But like, look at escrow as a box, and that's where the title company and the closing officer or whoever does that, that's where they do all their work to make sure that good title passes from the seller to the buyer, get the mortgage all straight and everything like that. Well, when you have your closing, when it's finished, when we close escrow, all of the documents for everything for the closing have been recorded and finalized. So they're done and they're recorded wherever you record documents, like at the Superior Court. I don't even know where you record it. Is that right? Is my understanding right, or am I a little bit off?
The recording happens after funding.
After funding.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that's interesting. So that's the way it happens here.
Okay.
That's the way it happens here. So here, all the parties sit together when it's time to sign. Okay.
No.
Seller signs separate, buyer signs separate.
Correct.
In Georgia, it's typical for everybody, including the lender, to be there.
Wow.
At closing. So the sellers are sitting on one side of the table, buyers sitting on the other side of the table.
So we do a lot of closings even out of state. So remote closings.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
And in Texas, people get what are called mortgages, correct? Mm-hmm. In Georgia, we don't do mortgages in Georgia. We do what are called security deeds, and it's an interesting thing because the buyer is basically appointing the lender as his or her attorney in fact to sell the property on the courthouse steps if the buyers cannot pay for it, if the borrowers cannot pay for it. But so it sounds like it's the same. So you're in escrow, you got some documents for the seller to sign, documents for the buyer to sign, some documents that just the lender needs to have signed, all in there together. And the transaction has not been finalized before it comes out of escrow.
Right.
And same in Georgia. So when we're finished, what we call the security deed, which you would call a mortgage, has not been recorded. And the title going from the seller to the buyer has not been recorded. And so it's interesting when you think about that, oh my gosh, I left this closing and I own this house, but you really don't. I left this closing and I don't own this house, but you still do, because the documents have not been recorded as you immediately walk out of the room. So then the escrow officer or the title company has to get everything recorded.
Okay, so we would differ on that.
Okay.
Because once the funding takes place and everybody signs everything, you own that house.
Yeah.
The recording of it is clerical. the ownership of it is in fact true and stands. The recording of it is just a clerical aspect of it. But once the funding happens and everybody signs, that buyer owns that house. And if it takes title 5 years to record it, the buyer still owns it. So the ownership doesn't happen upon recording.
That's so interesting. So in Georgia, nothing would actually change in the tax records until it was recorded.
Wow.
Or until January the 1st of the year after it was recorded. So is it recorded that day? Yeah. So is it kind of like everything's official before the end of the day? Yes, but it's not all finalized when people leave closing. So the deed has not been recorded to the buyer, which means the deed does not exist until it is recorded.